Welcome to our executive interview series at the FedScoop Federal Forum, sponsored by Workday. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're here with Mark Gorak, Principal Director for Resources and Analysis in the Office of the Chief Information Officer at the Department of Defense. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
First, I'd like to start by asking, what key steps can agencies take, and maybe specifically the Defense Department is taking, to leverage modern HR management systems to build a more agile and skilled federal workforce?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I think the first thing stems from what are you trying to do? And in order to determine what you're trying to do, that determines what workforce you need. And the primary basis for that is data. So you have to figure out what work roles, what things you want your people to do, what are the knowledge, skills, abilities, and tasks to be able to do that job, how many of them you need, and then at what level of proficiency they are. So the first thing I'd recommend is to know your people and know your mission and what you have to do and what you want to accomplish. And then we in the department, we use work roles. We have 73 of them, which identify for each, and this is for cyber and digital, for each of our functions, it describes the knowledge, skills, abilities, and tasks required to do that function. So it doesn't really matter to us what occupational series you're hired under or what skill set you have. It matters what you do today and what's required to do that job. Because at the end of the day, no matter what your position description says, we always know you have a job to do. So identifying what that is and then knowing if your workforce can accomplish that is the key to success in your digital transformation, if you will, of knowing your workforce. Step two to that is, if you know what they have to do, at what level do they have to do that? So we have 3 levels. We have basic level of proficiency, intermediate, and advanced. Think of it as your graduate, your master's degree, your PhD, if you will. Not quite aligned, but you have different levels. So identifying and knowing where your people are at, then where they need to be, that training is a gap. So we call that our readiness, where we're at from what we need to where we are. And then you can use that data to budget for training dollars, to have your people get trained or skilled or upskilled to that level that you're required. But if you don't have that data, you're kind of guessing. And in a technology field like cyber, we're always changing. So these work roles are not static. You have to be agile and flexible and keep updating them. So in the Department of Defense, we're updating ours every 90 days, every quarter. We have the ability to update. And this is where our users, our experts who are actually doing the mission in the field, come to us and say, hey, we need this additional skill set. So just recently, we updated our software developer work role. It was now our 73rd work role. We're in the process this month of updating our red teaming work roles. So we're always trying to innovate and update. That has an issue because that has downward consequences on training and qualification standards for the entire workforce. All the way down, think of academics, right? If I want a person who graduates from college today to know that they can do the job that I need them to do, what are those requirements? And if I'm changing them every 90 days, how does the academics and our training base keep up? Right now, they're not. So that's one of the ways that I'm trying to become more of a continuous curriculum update, specifically for cyber. So that's one of our challenges.
I appreciate your outlining that so specifically. Next, how is the Department of Defense, or your department in particular, taking a more innovative approach to skills-based hiring and building dynamic teams based on data-driven skills assessments?
So I think we have to get to skills-based hiring. So one of my number one objectives for this year is to establish at least a pilot to get to skills-based hiring. When I go out and I talk to organizations across the department, well, one of the biggest frustrations is always in hiring. Right now, I think the latest report out of CISA is about 700,000 cyber professional shortage across the nation. In DOD, we're short about 20,000. So we have a shortage of talent. However, I believe the talent exists. The nation has the talent. We're just not tapping into it, or the hiring process are so arduous for the federal government that people aren't making it past the processes and all the gates. one way to get around that, or not to get around it, but to get through it, is skills-based hiring. And in skills-based hiring, I care about what you can do, not about your education level, your experience, your pedigree of certifications, or your education level, or how many years you have doing the job. The question is, can you do this job today? And again, that starts with, what does the job require? The knowledge, skills, abilities, and tasks to do it. Add in some soft skills or professional skills for resilience and others. And will you make a good worker? And then once we determine you're a good worker, we have a next level of skills-based hiring, which is team-based. That's when you're in not alone, because we don't fight alone, we fight as a team, where you have a mission as part of a whole team that you have to work with your team and find who has, the best skills in this area versus this area, and bring that team together and then train as a team. And that's one thing I think the department in general, especially from our military side, is an expert at, is that training aspect. We have to now mimic that kind of culture to our civilian side and say, we're going to work together, military, civilian, and industry together in order to do this mission. So I look at this as a partnership, and how we accomplish this. We had to look at total force and how we're doing this together. And we can't get there, in my opinion, until we get to true skills-based hiring. And just to clarify, skills-based hiring is not a self-assessment that you're an expert in these 10 questions. Skills-based hiring, from my perspective, is you're in a cyber range doing a mission or a specific task required in a closed-loop system, and seeing if you actually can perform or not.
Thank you for qualifying that. And Mark Gorak, thank you for joining us here at the FedScoop Federal Forum and sort of sharing your insights on skills-based hiring in the Defense Department.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.